Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lost in the Farmer's Market, where you lovely computer people get to see all of this. Now, what do we have here? Well, first and foremost, this is not part of the video. This is chickweed, which is a lovely winter edible. This is garlic, not part of the video. This is aspabrock, which is a loose head broccoli that's supposed to taste like asparagus. It doesn't. But no, what we're talking about is this guy, this pink guy over here, the blue guy, this one that's going to bloom white based on those buds, the purple one, and this thing in the bowl here. I'll cover that one in specific later, even though it's the same species as the others. Now, what do we have? Hyacinthus orientalis, commonly known as hyacinth. Not to be confused with woodland hyacinth, which is related but different. Hyacinthus orientalis, or hyacinth, are in the Asparagaceae family. That means they're related to asparagus. However, they're in a genus, because Asparagaceae is the family and genus is underneath that as a grouping, Hyacinthiaceae. Okay? So they're a subgroup. It's funny how those subgroups work. You notice how amaryllis led to alliums, onions, and this leads to this? Go figure. Now, the orientalis indicates where it's from, that part of the specific epithet. That actually means it is native to somewhere in the east, i.e. Asia. And indeed, these plants are native to Eurasia, the Mediterranean, and South Turkey. Probably they came out of some part of the Orient, Asia, and transitioned through that because, there are other hyacinths, and the hyacinth grouping is a pretty decent-sized family, genus. So, they are hardy in zones 4A through 8B, and we're in 8B down here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So, of course, we're at the last readout. Now, what that means is that, like tulips here, you have to dig them up every year, and when you dig them up, you're going to have to clean them, store them in your fridge, cold store them in your fridge for a few weeks to a month to get them to sprout for next year. Because there's not enough cold hours for them to do the natural regeneration that they would do underground. And yes, some plants require certain amounts of cold period to produce buds and so forth, which is a problem we have with fruit trees. It's called chilling hours, which is not as not as fun as you might think. But anyway, that's an entirely different topic that maybe we'll cover in another later video. So, the soil pH preference is 6.0 to 8.0, and this plant prefers loamy soils with good drainage. So Carolina soil with its sand and all that, and then add some organic matter to it and you should be fine. Basic garden soil with organic matter enhancements. The hyacinth, the garden hyacinth, prefers full sun to partial shade, and in this case they're getting partial shade and they're doing just fine. That's actually better than average soil they're in, so, things are going to be all right. The height is 8 inches to a foot, which these guys probably won't reach a foot, but that's okay. The aroma of those flowers more than makes up for it. Hyacinths are especially aromatic, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Now, their width can be anywhere from 3 inches to 6 inches, and other common names, as I may have alluded or mentioned, common hyacinth, Dutch hyacinth, and garden hyacinth. And there are other versions of that out there, depending on what site you check with. Now, I use the NC Cooperative Extension Gardener's Plant Toolbox as the basis for the research, and then I spanned out from there. So there's a bunch of different mentions, even on the Wikipedia page. Now, again, that scent, why it's a bad thing. This plant is toxic to humans, cats, dogs, and horses. And the scent may lure in children, and they might put this in their mouth. Now, the good news is that the toxic parts are mainly the bulb, but the foliage probably doesn't taste very good, and it probably won't make your stomach very happy. However, most references indicate that it takes a lot of consumption to actually put yourself into a severe medical condition, so it's better to just not. Just don't. I mean it, kids. Don't. Just don't. Now, the good news. This plant is resistant to the compounds that are put out by black walnut foliage, which are called jugulones. It's a compound that basically inhibits the growth of other plants. Well, these are one of the plants that are just like, nah, fam, not hearing that. And I believe onions are also another one, but don't quote me on that. So, they're also resistant to deer because they're toxic, and rabbits because they're toxic, and they're drought resistant because apparently they're so toxic that drought wants nothing to do with them. Go figure. No, they're drought resistant because they're a bulb, and bulbs are actually really good at surviving drought because they have a modified shape where they layers of modified leaves growing off their growth base, the basal plate, and those actual modified leaf scales contain water and carbohydrates that allow them to survive the bad times. So they actually have an insurance policy on survival. But anyway, the flower itself comes from Greek myth. It's actually named for a person in Greek myth, to be specific. Hyacinthus was a young man who was admired by Apollo and Zephyr. Now, you know, when you're someone in Greek myth and you're admired by two separate Greek gods who are vying for your attentions, that's not a good thing. That means trouble and tragedy is a brewing. And, of course, he was killed. He was killed by a thrown discus during a discus game in which both gods had a bit of jealous rage and they were trying to outcompete each other for his attention. He was struck by a discus and killed instantly. A flower then sprang up from his spilled blood and was named after him. Now, the myth doesn't, as far as I can tell me what color the flower was, but it'd be kind of ironic if the first hyacinth in Greek myth was red. Again, doesn't tell me that. But still, typical Greek myth. Attraction. It's like a Calvin Klein ad. Attraction. Interest. Murder. Jealousy. Of course. Don't surprise. Now, in the garden, these guys who look pretty and seem to only do one thing have a biological feature that's actually very fascinating. You may never see it, but it's there. You see, in the garden, ants carry off hyacinth seeds because they are coated in a thing called elaiosome, which sounds like something involving spandex, but it's not. A elaiosome is a fleshy structure attached to seeds that is rich in lipids and proteins. In this case, the hyacinth seeds have one that attracts ants specifically. This feature is called myrmecory. I always screw that up. Myrmecory, which is a weird word. It basically means, basically what it says is that it's a food relationship between the plant and the ant specifically. Now, pollination, on the other hand, is done by insects on the regular, like honeybees and whatnot. It's like the boring side of this plant. And so, that leads us to why there's one in a bowl, and also a statement about how tough these little guys are. So, this one, as you can see, I planted these here, and they weren't supposed to be in this order. Actually, this one's supposed to be up against the pot wall, and so is this one. But soon after I planted it, squirrels. And then I had to replant these things. They just started to put out roots, and I had to replant them. And I thought I got them all. Well, not quite. This one was held hostage by squirrels for. I planted these in fall, so it's been a few months. And then suddenly, I found this one sitting beside a bush beside the driveway, almost on the neighbor's property. And I was just like, wait, is that a bulb? And I looked and I realized that's a hyacinth bulb because the flower cluster starting to come out, and there's nothing that looks quite like a hyacinth bulb flower cluster. So I brought it in and put it in some water and went about my business. And since these guys decided they were going to pop their blooms now, I was hoping to recover it beforehand. Here it is in its unplanted glory. Yeah. So that's hyacinths, Hyacinthus orientalis for you. If you have any questions or thoughts, please put them in the comments section. As always, my social media is updating with interesting stuff. I've been doing some companion planting stuff. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching and keep them growing.